My name is Courtney Miles. I'm 31 years old, and 6 weeks ago I canceled my wedding because my fiancé decided my dead family took up too much space. When I was 11, a house fire killed my mother, my father, my older sister, and my grandmother in one night. Faulty wiring, old wood, a house built long before anyone thought danger could sleep inside the walls. I survived because I was at a friend's house. The next morning I came home in her mother's minivan and saw fire trucks where my childhood used to be. The roof had collapsed over my bedroom. A firefighter stood near the driveway holding his helmet against his chest. Someone told me not to look, but of course I looked. Children always look when adults tell them not to. After that, my Uncle Raymond and my Aunt Elaine raised me. They were my father's younger brother and sister-in-law, and they took me in without hesitation. No dramatic speeches. No making me feel like charity. They simply cleared out their guest room, painted it pale yellow because Aunt Elaine said blue felt too cold, and told me, "This is your room now." So my family became small. Tiny, really. My uncle. My aunt. 2 cousins on my mother's side who lived across the country. And me. 5 people. If everyone could even make it. I don't talk about the fire often. It isn't a secret. It's just heavy. When you tell people you lost 4 family members in one night, the room changes. Their faces soften too much, or they panic and change the subject, or they treat you like something fragile they might break. So I usually say, I was raised by my aunt and uncle, and let the conversation move on. My fiancé, Daniel Mercer, knew everything. I told him on our 3rd date. He reached across the restaurant table, took my hand, and said, "Courtney, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine carrying that." I believed him. That was my mistake. We got engaged 10 months ago. He proposed at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. Expensive champagne. A princess-cut ring. His hands shaking just enough to make me love him more. I said yes because I thought love meant being seen completely. Then wedding planning started. Daniel loved planning. His mother, Patricia, loved controlling. Between the 2 of them, our wedding became spreadsheets, color-coded tabs, Pinterest boards, guest categories, and seating charts before I had even chosen a dress. I didn't care about centerpieces. I didn't care about linen colors, but I assumed the guest list would be ours. I was wrong. 8 weeks ago, we sat at Patricia's kitchen table. Daniel, his mother, his father, and me. Patricia had printed the guest list like it was a corporate merger. His side had 53 people. Immediate family, extended family, family friends, co-workers, church friends, and Patricia's book club listed under VIP. Then Daniel looked at me and said casually, "So your side will be what? 10 people?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" He shrugged. "Your family is small. 10 should be more than enough. That keeps everything balanced." Balanced. Patricia nodded. 50 and 10 is actually a very clean ratio. A clean ratio. I placed both palms flat on the table, fingers spread, grounding myself the way my therapist taught me when I was 14. "You know why my family is small," I said quietly. The kitchen went still. Daniel sighed. "Courtney, of course I know, but that doesn't change logistics." "Logistics. My family is small because they died," I said. "Not because I forgot to invite people." Patricia leaned forward with a tight smile. "Sweetheart, nobody is being cruel. We're just being practical," Daniel added. "You physically don't have 50 people. That's not my fault." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "I have friends," I said. "Co-workers. People who stood beside me when I had almost no one. This is my wedding too." Daniel rolled his eyes. Actually rolled his eyes. "We'll talk about it later," he said. "But the venue holds 75. The math is the math." I drove home alone that night. Daniel stayed at his parents' house. I sat in my apartment in the dark for almost an hour, hearing one sentence repeat in my head. "Your family is small. Yes, My family was small because they burned alive while I slept safely somewhere else. And the man I was supposed to marry had turned that into a seating problem. That night, I called Uncle Raymond. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "Courtney, a person who turns your grief into a logistics problem is not someone you build a life with. My uncle never told me what to do, so when he said that, I knew it came from somewhere deep." "I know," I whispered. "Then you know what comes next." I didn't cancel the wedding that night, but I stopped believing it would happen. The next morning at work, Ethan Cole noticed immediately. Ethan had worked with me for 4 years. Quiet, observant. The kind of man who remembered details without announcing that he remembered them. He knew about the fire, because 2 years earlier, on the anniversary, he found me sitting in the stairwell trying not to cry. He didn't panic. He didn't smother me with pity. He simply sat beside me and said, "Do you want to talk? Or do you want terrible diner pancakes?" We got pancakes. Since then, every year on that date, he texted me the same 6 words. "Thinking about you today. Be gentle." That morning, he placed coffee on my desk. Black. 2 sugars. Then he looked at my face and said softly, "How bad was last night?" And for the first time since Patricia's kitchen table, I felt something inside me crack. At lunch, I told Ethan everything. The spreadsheets, the 10-seat limit, Patricia calling my dead family a clean ratio, Daniel acting like grief was an inconvenience, ruining his venue math. Ethan stopped eating halfway through. "She actually said that?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "And Daniel backed her up?" He said logistics don't care about emotions. For a second, Ethan just stared at the table like he was trying very hard not to say something reckless. Then he looked at me and said, "You deserve someone who saves space for the people you lost, not someone trying to erase them from the head count." That sentence lodged itself somewhere inside my chest, because until then I hadn't realized what was missing. An empty chair. Someone who truly understood my grief wouldn't have treated my small family like a flaw to balance out. They would have understood that the missing people still mattered. That absence still takes up space. I went home that evening hoping Daniel had cooled off. Instead, he acted like nothing had happened. That was his pattern. Big conflict, one night of silence, then suddenly everything reset, and if you brought the issue up again, you became the difficult one. He was sitting on the couch watching television when I walked in. "Hey, babe," he said casually. "My mom found a cheaper florist." I stared at him. "That's what you want to talk about." He muted the TV slowly. "Courtney, are we really still doing this?" Still doing this. Like my family's death was an annoying argument I refused to let go of. "I want 25 seats," I said calmly. "Friends, co-workers, people who matter to me." Daniel rubbed his forehead dramatically. "Where exactly do you expect me to cut people from? We can get a bigger venue. A bigger venue costs more. I'll pay the difference." "That's not the point," he snapped. "The invitations are already being designed. My mom already started the seating chart. You can't suddenly blow everything up because you got emotional." Emotional. The word hit harder this time. "My parents died in a fire," I said quietly. "My sister died in that fire. My grandmother died in that fire." "Why do you keep talking about that? Like it's me being emotional instead of reality." Daniel stood up. "You know what? I'm tired of feeling like the villain because I'm trying to be practical." "Practical." Again. "You're making this wedding entirely about you," he continued. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because sometimes pain reaches a point where your body doesn't know what else to do. "It's my wedding too," I said. "You know what I mean." "No," I said softly. "I really don't." For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then I saw it. Not cruelty exactly. Worse, indifference. Daniel genuinely did not understand why this mattered so much, because to him the fire was just a tragic story from my past. Something sad that happened years ago. not something still living inside me every day. That terrified me more than anger would have. I went to bed early that night, but couldn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and sat on the couch with my laptop. I opened every wedding deposit receipt we had. Venue, $3,500 non-refundable. Florist, $600 gone. Photographer, partial refund. Catering deposit, maybe recoverable. I stared at the numbers for almost an hour. Then I started doing different math. How expensive is it to marry someone who minimizes your pain? How expensive is it to spend decades explaining why your grief matters? How expensive is it to sit through future holidays while your husband's family casually brushes aside your dead parents again and again? That number felt much bigger. The next morning, Ethan found me standing beside the office vending machines looking half dead. He handed me coffee without asking. "You sleep at all?" he asked. "Not really." He leaned against the wall beside me. "Want honesty?" "Always." "I think you already know this isn't about wedding seats." I swallowed hard, because he was right. The guest list wasn't the problem anymore. It was the glimpse into what my future would look like whenever my grief became inconvenient. At lunch, I finally asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Do you think I'm overreacting?" Ethan looked genuinely shocked. "Courtney," he said carefully, "if someone used the worst thing that ever happened to me as a budgeting discussion, I'd never look at them the same way again." Something in my chest tightened painfully. Not because of what he said, because of how gently he said it. No performance. No fake outrage. Just understanding. That evening, I went home and found Daniel at the kitchen counter scrolling through venue photos with his mother on FaceTime. Patricia immediately smiled tightly when she saw me. "Oh, good," she said. "Daniel and I were just discussing table arrangements. I suddenly couldn't do it anymore. Daniel!" I interrupted quietly. "I'm canceling the wedding." Silence. Patricia blinked first. "You're what?" Daniel laughed once like I'd made a joke. "Very funny." "I'm serious." His face changed instantly. "Courtney, don't start being dramatic." "There it is again," I whispered. "What?" "Every time I'm hurt, you call me emotional or dramatic because it's easier than admitting you were cruel." Patricia crossed her arms immediately. "Nobody was cruel to you." I looked directly at her. "You called my dead family a clean ratio." Her expression hardened. "Well, someone had to think realistically. That was it, the final crack." I looked at Daniel one last time, waiting for him to defend me. He didn't. Instead, he said, exhausted, "You're really throwing away 3 years over a guest list?" "No," I said softly. "I'm throwing it away because you made me realize you don't actually understand me at all." Then something unexpected happened. Daniel started crying, not angry tears, real tears. And for one horrible second, I almost gave in. Because loving someone for 3 years doesn't disappear instantly. Part of me still wanted to comfort him, still wanted to fix it. But underneath the guilt was another feeling. Relief. Pure relief. And relief told me everything. The next morning I canceled the venue. I lost thousands in deposits. Patricia apparently called me unstable to mutual friends. Daniel told people I destroyed the wedding impulsively. His mother framed the entire thing like I'd thrown a tantrum because I didn't get enough guests. I didn't defend myself publicly. The people who truly knew me didn't need explanations. And the people who immediately believed their version without asking mine were never really my people anyway. Daniel kept texting for days afterward. "You're making a mistake. You're throwing away our future. You're letting your trauma ruin your life. That last one hurt the most because my trauma hadn't ruined our relationship. His lack of compassion had." Then one night after work, Ethan and I sat in his car outside the diner where we always went for pancakes. Rain tapped softly against the windshield. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then quietly, almost like he was afraid of the words himself, Ethan said, I think I've been in love with you for a while. My heart stopped. I stared at Ethan, while rain slid down the windshield in crooked silver lines. For a second, neither of us moved. Then I whispered, I think I've known for a while too. He laughed softly, nervous. I was never going to say anything while you were with him. I know. And I did know. That was the terrifying part. Ethan had always respected boundaries, even when feelings existed underneath them. Nothing about him felt rushed. It felt discovered. The weeks after the cancelled wedding passed strangely fast. I spent more time with Uncle Raymond and Aunt Elaine. Sunday dinners, lemon cake, old family stories, quiet healing. One night, Aunt Elaine looked at me across the table and said, Your mother would have hated those wedding spreadsheets. I laughed so hard I cried. A month after the breakup, Ethan proposed. No restaurant, no audience, no giant diamond, just Ethan, standing in my apartment kitchen, holding a tiny vintage ring with a garnet stone, because he remembered garnet was my birthstone. I don't want a giant wedding, he said softly. I just want a life with you. I said yes before he even finished asking. We eloped 9 days later. Courthouse ceremony. 8 people total. My uncle and aunt. His parents. My 2 cousins who booked last-minute flights. Ethan and me. Before the ceremony started, Ethan quietly placed 2 empty chairs in the back row. For your family, he whispered. That nearly destroyed me. Afterward, we ate lemon cake in Uncle Raymond's backyard while light rain fell through the trees. Ethan held my hand the entire afternoon, like he understood I was carrying both joy and grief at the same time. Maybe he did. We posted a few wedding photos online that evening. Nothing dramatic. Just simple pictures and one caption. Small wedding, full heart. 3 hours later, my phone exploded. Daniel, are you serious? You canceled our wedding and married him? Was this happening behind my back? I never answered, because the truth wouldn't matter to someone, looking for betrayal instead of understanding. Then came the final thing. One of Daniel's younger cousins messaged me privately. She wrote, I heard Patricia joking at Thanksgiving that your side of the wedding barely counted because your family was basically gone already. I just wanted you to know not everyone agreed with how they treated you. Basically gone already. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I locked my phone and walked back outside, where Ethan stood near the porch talking to my uncle beside the grill. My tiny family. My real family. For years, I thought love meant being chosen loudly. Big weddings. Expensive rings. Perfect photos. But standing there under the rain with Ethan's hand wrapped around mine, I finally understood something else. The right person doesn't measure how much space your grief takes up. They make room for it.